and welcome back to Archival Discoveries. My name is Ryan Timms. I am currently an intern here at the Brantford Historical Society. Nathan has given me the pleasure to host this week's episodes of Archival Discovery for you guys. And in this week's episode, we will go over and discuss the life and legacy of W. Ross Macdonald. Before his career in politics, W. Ross Macdonald was born in Toronto, Ontario. From humble beginnings, he studied law at Osgoode Hall at U of T, also known as University of Toronto. After his studies, he then moved on to Brantford, Ontario, where he opened a successful lawyer practice before his rise to politics. W. Ross Macdonald served as Brantford's Member of Parliament from 1935 until 1953 under the Liberal Party of Canada. During this time, he faced many crises. The largest crisis he had to overcome was the Conscription Crisis throughout World War II. During World War II, many conservative politicians believed conscription was needed in order to win the war, opposed to many liberal point of views believed conscription was not needed. This brought a divide between both conservative and liberal politicians. What was so interesting of W. Ross Macdonald was the fact that he was a liberal politician who was for conscription. He was one of the few of his time who was for conscription and was also liberal. Thereby, this is a significant point of view from a liberal politician. As you can see by this document, it is a congratulation sent to W. Ross Macdonald regarding his speech at the Waterloo Board of Trade. This speech is significant because it was the first time W. Ross Macdonald launched his support for conscription. During World War II, Macdonald was a staunch supporter of conscription, and his position was made clear. There is victory to be won that can only be accomplished by every Canadian taking part. For a Liberal Party member, his stance on conscription was very rare, as he was a supporter of conscription. During this time, many Conservative Party members were the only ones supporting conscription, and it was very rare for a Liberal to publicly announce his support for conscription. This document is substantial because it is from a Brantford, Ontario resident who also supported conscription. As you can see by this document here, it is another congratulation letter sent to W. Ross Macdonald regarding the conscription crisis of World War II. This is another document sent from a Brantford, Ontario resident which further announced its support for W. Ross Macdonald's conscription stance. During this time, the Prime Minister of Canada, Mackenzie King, was against conscription. He saw what happened in World War I under the Laurier government and did not want to provide further divide between the French and British Canadians. The conscription crisis of World War II eventually came to an end when Prime Minister Mackenzie King agreed to send 17,000 men overseas. Out of that 17,000 men that were sent, only 2,463 of them actually served in active duty. Out of that 2,463, only 69 perished as a result of the conscription crisis in Canada. On this week's episode of Archival Discoveries, we will discuss W. Ross Macdonald's relationship with two former Canadian Prime Ministers. The first Prime Minister we will be discussing consists of Louis St. Laurent. The other will be Lester B. Pearson. On the advice of Louis St. Laurent, he appointed Macdonald to the Senate of Canada, where he became the leader of the government in the Canadian Senate and minister without portfolio in the Canadian Cabinet from 1954 until 1957, serving as the Solicitor General of Canada. Louis St. Laurent was a big fan of W. Ross Macdonald and thereby gave him the opportunity within Parliament. This letter was sent to Louis St. Laurent from W. Ross Macdonald, showing his deep gratitude for the opportunity Louis St. Laurent gave. As you can see, W. Ross Macdonald was very happy to be given this type of opportunity, and he addresses that in his letter. As you can see by the second document, it is a letter addressed to W. Ross Macdonald from Louis St. Laurent, the current Prime Minister of the time in 1953. It is regarding the Queen's coronation and that W. Ross Macdonald would be the official delegate to the Queen. This is important because it further demonstrates the trust Louis St. Laurent had for W. Ross Macdonald. W. Ross Macdonald was an important part of Louis St. Laurent's political career. As you can see by this document, Louis St. Laurent wasn't the only Canadian Prime Minister that W. Ross Macdonald had the pleasure to work with. Before Lester B. Pearson became a Canadian Prime Minister, he was the Secretary of State for External Affairs of Canada. During this time, he worked extensively with W. Ross Macdonald, where they formed a great political relationship. Due to this political relationship, when Lester B. Pearson became Prime Minister, he appointed William Ross Macdonald to serve as the Lieutenant Governor from 1968 to 1974, focusing his work with the Canadian Order of Foresters. W. Ross Macdonald is one of the most prominent politicians Brantford has ever seen. He left an everlasting political legacy on Brantford. For instance, Brantford is home to the only blind school in Canada, and in 1974, the blind school was renamed after W. Ross Macdonald. And that is it for this week's episode of Archival Discoveries regarding W. Ross Macdonald. I'm Ryan Timms, and this will be my first and only episode of Archival Discoveries, so I hope you guys enjoyed.
Thanks for joining us for Season 1 of Archival Discoveries. We are going to take a bit of a break over December, but stay tuned for new episodes starting in January.